In this video lecture, we are going to briefly discuss grounded theory, which is one unique type of qualitative research approach. This lecture will provide you with the purpose and steps of grounded theory. After this brief introduction, you will view a TED Talk by a grounded theorist who is also a social worker, Dr. Brene Brown. In that TED Talk, she will talk about the process and findings in her grounded theory research. Grounded theory is an inductive approach based on naturalism, not positivism. It is a qualitative systematic generation of theory from data that is systematically obtained from research. The purpose of grounded theory research is to develop a mid-level theory from qualitative data, usually observations of participants, written text, or interviews that utilize open-ended questions. The two researchers who created this theory were Glaser and Strauss in the 1960s, who initially sought to study communications of medical staff in front of patients in terms of the patient's awareness context. There are a few key processes in conducting a grounded theory study. Theoretical sensitivity, theoretical sampling, coding, memoing, and sorting. Theoretical sensitivity means to enter the study with as few predetermined ideas as possible to avoid anticipation of what you will find. This anticipation might bias how you process the data. For this reason, researchers only conduct a light literature review prior to beginning data collection in order not to bias interpretation of qualitative data. In grounded theory research, one simultaneously collects, codes, and analyzes data. This is different from quantitative methods in which one conducts these steps separately and in a certain order. Collect data first, then analyze data. In addition, sampling usually stops when the researcher arrives at what we call saturation. Saturation means that no new themes emerge from coding the data, so one can stop collecting and analyzing data at that point. Generating memos is something the researcher does throughout the grounded theory study. It is a write-up of ideas about codes and how their relationship is to each other. In terms of sorting, the researcher is constantly sorting memos, looking at relationships between thematic codes on the memos. Once the researcher understands how the coding relates to each other, the researcher generates a mid-level theory that explains the relationship. Conducting a grounded theory study is a lot more time-consuming, usually, than conducting a quantitative study. Because the researcher is the instrument, it can take weeks or months to sort through all the data, create memos, find the themes or codes that emerge, understand the relationship between those codes, and then generate a theory that explains it all. This is a very different process than quantitative methods, in which we first collect data, then enter it into SPSS for analysis, then interpret the output after that. In quantitative methods, SPSS does the analyzing, but with qualitative methods, your brain does it. Most students will find that published qualitative studies are easier to understand than the quantitative studies. However, I find that the qualitative research is actually harder to do and more time-consuming. I want you now to meet a grounded theorist, Dr. Brene Brown. Brene Brown is a grounded theorist who graduated with her BSW, MSW, and PhD in social work. She is the author of several books, has been featured several times on the Oprah Winfrey Super Soul Sunday show, and writes columns regularly on Oprah's website. Now you will see a video in which Dr. Brown will discuss her grounded theory research in terms of process and her findings to get a sense for how grounded theory research is conducted and how it applies to social work practice. Since it is copyrighted material, I have provided a separate link for Dr. Brown's TED Talk video in Blackboard directly below the link for this video lecture. After you view that video, this will conclude the lecture on grounded theory analysis in qualitative research. Please email or stop by with any questions.